What's going on, guys? Brad here, and this is another episode of Test Drive Tuesday. Alright, in this video we're going to be doing a walk around on what to look for when shopping a pickup truck, whether it be new or pre-owned. In this one we're going to be focusing on more of pre-owned. While this one is newer, it still has one or two owners that has had it before, so we want to go through this and be meticulous so we know exactly what we're buying and know what to look for before we pull the trigger on something like this. So diving right into it, first thing you want to do, obviously if you watched the last video, you want to start the engine and let it get up to operating temperature. While you're doing that, you want to walk around the body of the truck and look for paint scratches, dings, dents, anything cosmetic that would be less than desirable, if you will. And so far I don't see anything. You also want to look at tread depth and make sure that those tires at least have enough life on there that would satisfy you and your needs. Anything with balding tires or something that needs immediately replaced, I would definitely bring that up. Also, you want to check the brake rotors. Make sure there's no gouges in them, any unevenness. If it feels like a record player, you might want to look into those rotors. You definitely want those things to be smooth and have some meat left on them. Obviously, if their brake pads are wearing out, you'll hear them squeal, you'll feel them scrub, things like that. These trucks are used for work, especially down south. Many people like to tow with them, take them off-road, so they get used more for utility than anything else. So you're looking around, make sure there's no oil leaks, any fluid leaking out. You want to look at rust on the battery terminals and make sure those are in good. Now, speaking of batteries, you want to check the date on these batteries. They'll have a date, every battery will. You want to check the dates and make sure that it's still good. It'll have the date that the battery was made. Some of them will actually have an expiration on when they should be changed, but for this one you can see it still has Ford Motor Company as the label, letting you know this is the factory battery from 2019. So it's still got plenty of life left in it, and you shouldn't expect to have to change it for the next few years. So opening the door here, you always want to look in the back seat if it's got one. If it's got passenger seating, you always want to consider your passengers' comfort when purchasing a vehicle, especially if you have a family. Maybe you just want enough room for the friends. Either way, you want to consider their comfort and what it would be like as a passenger in a vehicle like this. Now we're looking at the bed here, and as you can see, it's got a bed liner in it. One thing you want to look for is rust and holes in the bed. Now this one, it has been used without a bed liner before. That's nothing to worry about. But like I said, you're looking for holes, rust, anything structural that may compromise the integrity of this bed. Everything looks good here, nothing I would be concerned about. Look at your anchor points, and you also have lighting right here. So note those features, every feature that it would list or would have on the truck. Make sure that's working properly, and if it's not, is that a deal? Now once you're in the cab of the truck, you want to make sure that you have your seating position correct. And obviously by correct I mean the ride height of the seat. Make sure your legs are comfortable. You can reach the pedals comfortably. Make sure the steering wheel is exactly where you want it. Some vehicles, particularly this truck, will have a telescoping steering wheel, so it will move up and down, forward and back, so you can get it exactly where you want. Make sure that once your seat is exactly where you like it, you familiarize yourself with the gear lever, the buttons on the steering wheel, all the safety features and driving assist functions that are available to you. Make sure all of those are working properly, and if any of them are not, again, consider, is that going to be a deal breaker for you? Now once again, in our last video, if you watched it, you'll see that I tested the transmission several times, and what I mean is you want to put your foot on the brake, obviously, and shift from reverse to neutral into drive. And then this one has a M for medium or mid-range gear. You want to shift it back into park and repeat that process at least 2 or 3 times. And what you're listening for is hard shifting, maybe delays in shifting, any grinding noises, any anything that doesn't sound right. You don't have to be a car person to understand what doesn't sound right. If it's grinding, or if there's some sort of delay in shifting or hard shifting, then obviously there's something wrong. So with that being said, after you have familiarized yourself with the cabin and the driver functions and features, now it's time to get it down the road. Okay, now that we have gone over the exterior and the interior and noted all of the features and functions and made sure they work correctly or up to the standards you're looking for, we are going to take it on the first of 3 types of roads that I recommend. The first being a back road. Now, you don't have to do these in any particular order, but I start with the back road just because it's closer on this track, if you will. So with this back road, you want to get a feel for the steering. You want to note the suspension. If it's a rough road, I recommend hitting the potholes, and with the exception of the large potholes that might mess up the front end alignment or components of the vehicle, if it's not that big a pothole and it won't do any damage or shouldn't do any damage, go ahead and hit the pothole, because what you're looking for on that is if you hit a pothole and the whole car just jostles around, then there's something wrong with either the front or rear, or something with the suspension, the wheels, steering. Something is not correct. Alright, so now that we have gotten off the back road or curvy road, whichever term you want to use, we're going to put it through the city driving test, and that consists of mainly stop and go traffic. What you're looking for is braking and acceleration of the truck, and you want to pay attention to squeaking, grinding, scrubbing, anything that might raise concern. Even still, with pickup trucks, you also want to feel for when you hit the brake, if the steering tries to veer off to one direction, if the truck tries to send you in a different direction, doesn't want to stay straight. The transmission needs to downshift very smoothly, and honestly you shouldn't notice it downshifting at all unless you have it in some sort of tow mode or mid-range gear. Now, with that being said, I don't feel anything with this truck that I would be concerned about. It's very smooth, and if you ever heard of Emeril Lagasse, the chef that, I don't know if he's still on the Food Network or not, but it's like butter. But so coming around the corner, the turning, the steering and turning of the truck is great. It's nothing I would feel less confident about. Now, coming to a red light, there's some potholes here. As I'm slowing down, I'm going to hit the potholes. Beautiful, beautiful. Nothing to complain about here. It doesn't send me off in one direction. I don't hear any squeaking or grinding. Now, I'm sure some of you are going to say, well, it's a 2019, what do you expect? But I have seen 2019s, even some new vehicles, with problems like that. Scrubbing, grinding, when you hit the brakes, it sends you off in one direction. So that's why I'm doing a 2019, is just because the likelihood of it having severe issues is not very high. You still want to do your due diligence on any pre-owned vehicle just to be sure, because I don't want anyone to say yes, move forward, pull the trigger, whatever term you want to. I don't want anyone to buy a vehicle without doing their due diligence and knowing exactly what they're buying and being confident in that purchase. Alright guys, so now that we've taken it through a curvy road, we've taken it through the city and experienced the stop and go traffic, we've put it out on an open road or highway, got it up to speed, we were listening for precarious sounds or sensations or feelings in the steering, suspension, braking, acceleration, all of that. After you have done all of that and the vehicle checks out to your standards, now the next thing to do is, if you haven't already, if you have a salesman with you or an associate, or the individual owner, if you have any of them with you, now would be a good time to start asking questions and getting to the bottom of some of your concerns and getting his input on his experience as the owner, or getting the service history from the dealership, from the associate. Just get some backstory on the vehicle, and you can do that before you start the drive. But for me, I like to just remain quiet and silently look at all these things and just put it through its paces in my own headspace. And then once I've concluded it, then I'll start asking questions so that I can, go down through the list and get them all answered at the same time. It's just a personal preference of mine. Now, if you think you'll have trouble remembering, obviously you can ask as you go through the test drive. Now, right here, I'm pulling back into the parking lot, checking the reverse gear, making sure it works properly. You're going to check the ease of parking. Some people aren't used to big trucks. Even if it's not a full-size truck, if you're not used to driving a pickup, they drive very differently than a sedan. The SUVs drive similar, but there again, if you have a longer bed or a longer cab, the driving dynamic is a lot different, and can be, not in every case, but they can be very different as far as how they steer, how they drive, how they brake, things like that. So make sure you get acclimated if this is your first pick. Okay guys, so that wraps up the driving portion. Of this test drive. Now, I'm not going to go through as many details as I did the last video, but use the same criteria in a general sense to go over this vehicle as well. You want to check all the features and functions and make sure they work up to your standards. Now, on pickup trucks, one thing to remember is if it comes from up north, even for fewer cases down south, you want to look at the frame. Make sure there's no rust, make sure there's no holes or anything that would raise concern on your end. And with that being said, if you would like to purchase this vehicle, I'll have the description down in the description and somewhere on the screen. So anyway, thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe, and I will look for you in the next video. Also, don't forget, if you have suggestions on a vehicle you would like to see, whether it be a general type of vehicle or a specific make, model, leave a suggestion in the comments, or you can always reach out to me at my cell phone number. And what else? Oh yeah, there's Facebook. You can reach out to Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well. All that will be listed somewhere in the screen. So once again, thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video.